The ending of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 just changed everything. Betrayals, tragic deaths, and a final twist that nobody saw coming. But what really happened? What does this mean for Chapter 5? Let's go ahead and break down every hidden clue, every shocking reveal, and the terrifying fate of our character. And spoiler alert, you're not gonna believe what we uncovered. So for starters, let's rewind a bit. Throughout Chapter 4, we were led to believe that Dr. Harley Sawyer, aka the Doctor, was our biggest enemy. He controlled the safe haven, ran, twisted experiments, and even tried to kill us. But as we defeated him, we found out that he wasn't actually the true mastermind. The real villain, of course, as we know, is the prototype, which he was working with. Obviously, Poppy revealed her plan to us. She wanted to destroy this factory, but the prototype was always one step ahead. While we thought we were being guided by Ollie, it turns out in the end that the prototype has been impersonating him this entire time. Well, maybe not the entire time, but more on that later. The prototype's deception led to the death of everyone in the safe haven, the same place that Doey tried so hard to keep sacred. As a matter of fact, the whole reason we even found the Omni Hand and rescued it was to keep these kids alive. However, the same explosives we were going to use to take this place down, and Doey tried to talk us out of, wiped everybody out within the safe haven, except for you and Doey. But this was only the beginning of our nightmare. So let's talk about Doey a little bit more in depth. Throughout the game, he was our ally. He definitely was odd, including the time that we saw him eat Pianosaurus. But even though he was different, he actually had a heart, unlike most of the other monsters. But when we realized that all of his friends were dead, well, something inside him snapped. He lost control, and a horrifying moment proceeded where Doey transformed into this monstrous version of himself and of course turned against us, the people who did this to his fellow safe haven members. This fight wasn't just about survival at this point, it was a tragic story. Doey didn't want to be a killer, but he couldn't stop himself. And in his final moments as he lay dying, we heard something truly heartbreaking. In my opinion, Doey wasn't a villain. He was just another victim of the Playtime Co.'s twisted experiments. And with his death, we lost one of our only friends that we had left. Especially since, well, spoiler alert, Poppy ends up leaving at the end. Who are we left with? And speaking of that, I mean, if you thought Doey's death was shocking, what happens next is even worse. After everything, Poppy, our supposed ally, turns her back against us. Terrified by the prototype's words, she leaves, and instead of helping us, she literally runs out. And I think this moment says everything about Poppy's true nature. She's not a victim, she's a survivor, and she'll do anything to escape, even if it means leaving us and Kissy behind. And that's when the prototype makes his move. He tells us his plan has been set in motion. And what exactly is he planning? What does he need Poppy for? And most importantly, how is Huggy Wuggy involved at the end? But my true idea about this whole Huggy misconception is I don't think that was actually Huggy. We're gonna go ahead and jump into that very soon. As the prototype once again uses the last of the explosives we collected to shatter the floor beneath us, and Kissy Missy loses her arm trying to save us, well, we begin to search for something different. We stumble across the labs, and these labs are something we've never seen before in Poppy Playtime. Walking through these poppy fields, you come across a tape from Leaf Pier. And in case you didn't know, Leaf Pier is who took over the Playtime Co. factory. But things get really strange. He begins to explain that anybody caught down in the labs will be shot. And that's where things take an even stranger twist. And it's also when we see him, Huggy Wuggy, waiting outside our cell, watching us in the distance. Wait, Wasn't Huggy dead though? We saw him fall at the end of chapter 1, so how is he back? There are only two theories here. Either this is a new Huggy Wuggy, or Huggy never actually died. But maybe, just maybe, for those of you who are really deep into the Poppy Playtime lore, what if I told you that this Huggy Wuggy isn't actually Huggy Wuggy? If you pay close attention to the end of the chapter, you'll notice red poppy gas begins to fill the room. We literally walked through it to get into this office space. So, with all of the things that we know about the Playtime Co-Factory and their use of poppy gas to form these hallucinations, what's to say that this isn't actually Huggy, but instead Kissy Missy coming to retrieve us? It just so happens that the Huggy Wuggy that we see on screen also is missing an arm. Funny enough though, when Kissy tried to save us, we ripped off her arm. And the banging on the glass kind of resembles somebody trying to take you out of that door instead of somebody trying to break in. What if this is just Kissy trying to help us escape? And once again, just like in chapter 3, our protagonist begins to envision his worst nightmare, which I've already explained has to be Huggy Wuggy. Every time we inhale this poppy gas, well, outside of the chapter 3 boss fight, we see a nightmare version of Huggy, which once again, I believe correlates these two characters between Huggy and our main protagonist. But let's say that this isn't Kissy Missy and this wasn't hallucination. Let's look closely. Huggy isn't attacking, he's just standing there. Could it be that Huggy is actually trying to help us? Or could it be that he's trying to take out the prototype along with us? If that's the case, things get really interesting because when we saw him fall in chapter 1, we just assumed that he had the same fate as Kissy Missy, taken away and put in to the next plan that the prototype was trying to create. But if he wasn't sucked into the prototype somehow, then who repaired him? Who fixed Huggy Wuggy? And that's where the next theory comes in. I don't think Ollie is just a manipulated version of the prototype, but instead, I do think that this character exists. If you'll recall, at the beginning of the game, Doey had a conversation with Poppy, but he also mentions that Ollie said we could be trusted. So I don't think if this was the whole goal from the beginning, the prototype would have tried to convince Doey that we were on his side. My theory is that there is a version where Ollie does exist. Ollie is somewhere inside of this factory, and maybe he's the one who put Huggy back together. And if we believe that this is the true Huggy and he's here to save us, maybe Ollie's the one who sent him to do that. This rules out the whole theory of this is a new Huggy Wuggy. Even though they're probably made multiple versions, I think when it comes to the bigger bodies, they only have this exact version of Huggy Wuggy, the same one that we saw in chapter 1. And so this brings a ton of questions heading into chapter 5. Where exactly does this leave us? Will we finally escape the factory? Or is Huggy an enemy or an ally? What exactly is the prototype's final plan here? All I'm saying is whatever is going to take place in chapter 5 is going to change everything, as many people even believe that this is the final chapter. But Mob Games has a lot of questions that need answers, including why Poppy ran off. Is she joining the prototype? Is she with us or against us? Who is going to save us? And what exactly is the whole point of the player coming back to this factory to begin with? What do you think? Do you believe that Huggy is good now? And what do you think about the prototype's end goal here? Let me know in the comment section down below. And thank you guys again for watching all of these videos. It really means a lot to me. These theories aren't easy to come up with, and I literally spend so much time studying the gameplay in order to find cracks and different lore pieces to bring to you guys. So with that being said, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button for more awesome content just like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, peace out!